disconnecting and reconnecting. So.
Both is true.
No.
Are you sure?
I have a physical copy of it. Or do you want to read it off my computer?
My magnifying glasses. All right, hey, it's 5 o'clock. And you all made it on time.
Somewhere.
Look at that. All right, welcome to Peterborough Select Board meeting for June 3rd. Summer's over, pretty much. Tonight, I'm Tyler Ward. Then we have Bonnie Tucker and Bill Kennedy, fellow Select Board members. Nicole McStay, our Town Administrator. And Justine Hansen's down there taking our minutes. Tonight's agenda, we are on air. I can see this. Okay, thanks. And Tim Brezovic is taking care of everything behind the scenes, so speak up if you are going to speak, and if I call on you, just state your name for the record. We'd love to hear any comments or questions. Tonight's agenda, we have Mike O and Pareena Deva are here for the Comprehensive Environmental Incorporated, and they're going to present the utility rate model, and we'll discuss that. That's our water and sewer rates, and Nate is here to chime in on that too, I'm sure. And then we have some, we're going to encumber some funds from 2025, FY25 and 26. Revolving fund budgets we might approve, and then some overspending of the recreation revolving fund.
For good reason.
That'll be a hot topic. And then we have some minutes to approve. And then a couple other items. We're going to re-up our contract for patrolling Miller State Park. And then there was one other item.
Reversing
the police cruiser. Yeah, they've been, already has our name on it, so I don't know if we can not approve that. All right. Up first, welcome. Welcome, guys. You're going to present to us for...
So I just want to, before...
you want to give a quick update?
Before I turn it over, I'd like to just remind the board and inform the public our goals for this rate model project. The goals have been set a while ago. So last time we actually did a rate increase was in 2018. 2018, it's been a long time. One of the reasons that we waited so long was because we knew that we were working with a very outdated model. We had some big projects that were coming up that would need to be incorporated. And so we held off a little bit to make sure that we would have the opportunity to work with Pareena and Mike and get the rate model that we need. The goals of the project were to develop a reliable and updatable model that provide the capacity to determine rates that allows the board to choose the objectives the rate will meet. That includes current budget needs, future budget needs, and capital planning goals. Allows the board to set targets as those goals and objectives during rate setting. Provides the data to estimate the impact of the rates to different household types, and allows the board to move to a tiered system based on user consumption. And finally, allows the board to reduce the minimum billing quantity and give customers more direct control over their own bills. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike and Pareena, who can walk through the model and the process that y'all went through.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So you went over wonderfully the purpose of the model, and I'll go over kind of everything that's going on in the background, the methodology of how we created this model. So essentially this is a tool for the board to be able to punch in different rate alternatives and predict what the revenue will be on average. So this model uses two sets of data, a representative dry year set of customer use data and a representative wet year set of customer use data. So the dry year is high use, high revenue, and the wet year is low use, low revenue, when there's not that much outdoor water use. So that accounts for any revenue shortfalls or surpluses that you might see on a year-to-year basis. So in this model, we incorporated a one-tier structure, which is the current structure, a 2-tier structure, and a 3-tier structure. So what that means for the 2 and 3-tier structure is that it allows different rates for different usage brackets, and it incentivizes water conservation and kind of shifts the financial burden to very high users for a 3-tier structure especially. So let's look at the customer usage breakdown. So this is very small, I'm sorry. So this shows sort of where the revenue is coming from for each water use bracket. So you can see here the users on the lower end, 0 to 3,000 cubic feet, that's where most of the revenue is coming from. And then as you increase in usage, there's less revenue coming from those higher users. So the way that we split up the tiers was we kind of, it's gonna be hard to show, but if you can see here, this bill count 2,700, that's where the first tier is cut off. So this includes essential water users only. Those are the, single family or 1-person households that also don't use much outside water use. The second tier goes from 1,000 to, well, in the 2-tier structure, 1,000 to everything above that. In the 3-tier structure, it goes from 1,000 to 6,000. And that sort of cuts off the bracket where we see kind of a spike here of bills right outside that second tier. So that's kind of a good threshold for people who want to kick themselves into a lower rate bracket. Any questions so far?
Could you put that chart back, the
Sure.
first one? I just want to see the total number of users. Was that
Yep.
there that I missed?
Yeah, so the approximate,
Cubic feet, total cubic feet.
oh, okay.
And then the number of users also.
Yeah, so the customers is about 1,700
Oh, okay.
here.
That's right.
And then there's 4 bills per year. So 6,800 bills.
So, Deva, so how much of a percent of the water usage in town are people or users that use over 6,000 cubic feet?
Whatever this adds up to.
Not by percentage, I mean, how many cubic feet?
Oh,
are
how
they
many
using?
cubic feet?
How much of a percent of the cubic feet, not the bill count?
Yeah. So a lot of the usage comes from those high users. I don't have that number broken
Roughly,
down.
it's probably like 8.
Yeah.
8 million.
Yeah.
It's something on the bottom right. It's
Nearly
8.8.
Pretty close.
No. So,
8.8.
So less than 10% of the user uses half the water.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'll go over this, water revenue goals questionnaire here that we set up. And this is, Nicole touched on this, for the goals of this model, was to be able to see whether the rate changes that you plug in here are meeting the town's current budget or target budget for the 5-year horizon. And you can also build in any future debt that you anticipate or a time frame on a fund balance to be able to. Sorry?
The year is 2024.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
those not 2025.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna mention that to,
Yeah,
so
But
for
I've
folks
also
to.
updated all the budgets, so
Yep.
she's not even,
Yep, so I can just change this right here.
There you go, that's
So-
our current budget.
Yep,
it's not.
That's our current
That-
year.
that's our current year. yeah.
I know, but that is,
2025.
she's not using the document that I updated last Thursday, so that is not the budget. I just want to look at real numbers.
Well, we'll look at
Right.
those when we go to do the recommendation. I think we can just walk through the model now, and
Okay.
then we'll be
Okay.
able to.
Is it higher or
Yep.
lower than this? Okay.
It's higher.
Okay, so is this,
So Pareena, if
Yeah.
you want to just quickly jump over to
yeah,
the-
I can jump over to
Budget
this
tab?
budget tab and fix it.
So that's what's behind the scenes.
This is the behind the scenes, how we get those numbers for each year's budget forecast. Where is that number here?
Not only did I update 2025, but I updated all the outlier
All of
years.
these, okay. Okay. We can work with these numbers for now. So, where was I?
Different target,
Yeah.
revenue targets.
Yeah, so basically this is to kind of help the board try or test out different rate structures and rate increases to try to get to each of these different targets. And I'll punch in the numbers that Nicole gave me to just show you how it differs from one tier, two tier, and three tier structure, and how the revenue in each bracket kind of shifts from the lower users to the higher users when you use a tiered structure. So I'll type in these pre-set numbers. So what I'm doing here is when I'm adding a negative percentage, this annual service charge is actually going down. And we're decreasing the minimum use. So the first tier charge is actually getting kicked into effect earlier. And then the positive percent increase is increasing that tier one charge. And you can see on the right here, we're averaging the dry year, high use, high revenue year, and the low use, low revenue year, and coming up with an average revenue here that will meet the 2025 current budget. So as you can see, I just changed the one tier and the two tier, and now it meets the current budget for 2025. Let me finish doing this one.
Yeah, and as Pareena's going through this, the intent was that those yellow shaded cells are really the only thing that
Yeah,
need to be,
toggled,
yeah,
yeah,
changed, and then you can quickly see what the
right.
result is.
Yep. Oh, did I mess?
It looks to me that the cost for the lower user is a higher per cubic foot than the cost for a larger user. Am I reading
Yep.
that wrong?
Yep. So, yeah, that,
Okay, so we're incentivizing people to use
Incentivizing.
more water?
no, we're incentivizing people to use less water, so they're in a lower, less expensive bracket.
So it's, Tyler, it's saying that if we were to stick with a one-tiered system as we have now, the rate would have to be higher in order for us to make that budget. But if we look at the next tier down, like, then the numbers will go down accordingly so that And so it's like if we only did one tier like we have now, the rate has to be higher than if we do a tiered rate system where we have
Yeah.
multiple rates that we're looking at.
Yeah, so
That
for
makes
this,
sense.
this first tier, everybody is paying this 0.1046 per cubic foot. For this two-tier structure, users that have usage between 300 and 1,000,
Oh,
they
okay.
pay a little bit less per cubic foot than,
Gotcha.
users that use more than 1,000. And then likewise, for this three-tiered structure.
On the three-tier structure, your increase should be minus 450 on the minimum use.
Oh, yep, sorry.
That'll clear that
That'll,
up.
yeah.
Okay.
Good catch, thank you. So with those changes, we can see that the goal is met for the 2025 current budget. But what does this mean for a typical customer bill? Since like the overall revenue is the same, but what is the purpose of implementing a two-tier, three-tier structure? So I think this kind of is a good visualization of what's going on with typical uses. So this dark blue is the one-tier structure, this middle one is the two-tier structure, and this light blue is the three-tier structure. So as we add tiers, the lower users, you can see like a decreasing trend in the overall revenue coming from those groups. And then an increasing trend for the groups, for the users, the high users. So, like I said, the financial burden is shifting to the very high users, those commercial, industrial places. And I can also show you the typical, so this is kind of like an overview of what a typical bill would be for different types of customers. So for a one-person household that uses just essential water, no outdoor water use, the bill for a one-tier structure is slightly higher than a two-tier, and which is slightly higher than the three-tier. But then when you go to your users that are using quarterly water use of 300,000 cubic feet, that bill is increasing as you go up in tiers. So more of that revenue is coming from those high users.
Are these numbers updated for the changes that you made?
Yep,
Are they?
yeah.
So a single-family residence would pay a total of $293, that's per year?
Yes, that's per year. So this, just comparing it to the current, what they're currently paying right now, these are those numbers with the current rate, which obviously doesn't meet that 2025 budget.
Wait, and we get 4 billings a year?
Sorry?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and I pay like 117 per billing, so how is that 198?
So that's only looking at the store, so whatever we do to the store, we need to do to we're only looking at water, and so your bill is combined water and store. So that's why those numbers aren't quite making sense in your head.
Yeah, so you can see how there's two brackets, so at the top box is the water and below will be the sewer.
Yeah, the sewer's down here, which I haven't changed, so you can see that
That
these
hasn't
alternatives
changed at all.
haven't changed, and it's the same as the current. I think that's it. Mike, did I miss anything?
That's a pretty broad overview.
Yeah. Let's see what else I can go over.
I seem to recall from previous meetings that this is something that other towns do, obviously.
Yep.
Are there many in New Hampshire that have this kind of rate structure?
Yeah, as a general trend, water is being viewed more as a valuable and limited resource. And as such, the goal is shifting to more conservation and trying to induce conservation. So with that, there is across the board a push towards increasing block rates, which is what this setup is. So that, you know, if you start off with that lowest block, which are people that are just trying to, you know, use essential water just to live. And those mindset or policy could be that you want to kind of protect those individuals. And then as people incrementally use more water, they will see a higher per unit cost and ultimately bear more of the cost of providing that. And keep in mind, most of those peak demands happen during, at least in this region of the country, in the summer. And you have to have the infrastructure available all year, even if it's not even being used. So there's a good rationale for having those costs shifted towards the higher water or higher volume users.
Do you want me to go through some other, like, targets, or?
Yeah, David had a question.
Oh,
I
sorry.
wondered, on the screen, it showed that everybody's water rate's gonna go up at least 30% or so.
Mhm.
Some would go up 85, so is that a new rate structure different from the rate structure we had this year? I take it.
Yeah, it would be. And those increases are necessary to get to this, you know, the bare minimum current budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's still just the bare minimum budget.
correct.
Yes.
So what happens when we start to put in some of the,
Hit the
Yeah,
targets.
hit the targets,
Right.
it'll increase.
It goes
so
up.
have we played with that already?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think they have, yeah.
Yes, we have. So we modeled out meeting all 4 of those goals, and what that would look like,
Okay.
so.
One other question, if you don't mind. On the lower end users, have you looked at the minimum users to see whether a minimum user is at least paying for the infrastructure to provide service to the, I assume it'll be a house in this case. So you lowered that
Mhm.
number, does that still cover the basic cost of service for an individual house? Or are the higher users gonna subsidize it?
It's really, so the minimum charge is more or less, you know, what we estimate is the cost of running a system,
So
more or
it's kind
less.
of more or less. kind
More or
of,
less, probably less. Or just having a system, not necessarily individuals that work the system, trucks that drive them back and forth to the system, oil, you know, and what
Yeah,
have
that's
you.
it.
So there's an awful lot that gets captured by the rate, but there is, you know, a minimum cost of just being tied into the system, and that is what you kind of hope to capture with the minimum bill.
Right. But at this moment,
Yeah.
we're not looking to try and subsidize the lower users
So
necessarily.
it's about trying to get to something, again, like Mike said, that's more equitable, you
Yeah.
know, something that is putting the burden on the higher consumers as opposed to saying, because right now, our system is such that you can have a 2-family household, sometimes even a 3-person household, who never pays a rate above the minimum charge. Doesn't matter how much water they save or don't save, so you're not really getting to their actual usage, their actual consumption. So this is hopefully getting people, getting the households to a place where they're in control of their bill, much more than they are now. Right now, most of our households in town just pay a minimum or just barely over that.
Right.
And they have no control whatsoever over their bill, so.
Al, you had a question?
I think that's been sort of answered, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I took a look
Thanks, Doug.
at the average numbers of cubic feet for each of each of the two categories, under 1K and under 2K. And in a dry year, the average was around 576 cubic feet. So if we drop it down to 300, they're going to be paying on top of their bill. In a wet year, with 618 people. So those are the numbers, as you mentioned, probably people watering their lawn during a dry season, which I think is a waste of water, but in any case, trying to make this as equitable as possible, it's the single-family dwelling that, I don't know that the 300 cubic feet is really going to make it for them. More closer to 500, don't you think?
They're going to get charged for the minimum, and then only 200 will be the additional. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Only 200?
If it's 500, if they're using 500, and the minimum is 300.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Right now, we're charged, it's 700 is the minimum.
750.
If you use less than that, they're paying, they're subsidizing 200 per cubic feet of some gallons.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do we, sorry, Alice, do we know the answer to who uses how much, over and under in that range? I guess it's the 300 to 600. Do we have a sense of that?
I'm watching your house.
What's the, please don't watch my house. Or, don't look at the color of the lawn. You don't have to watch the house at all. You just have to look at the, sorry. That difference, someone's going to have to be able to figure out, wow, if I use less, I'm going to save that much more.
Sure.
Or I'm going to save from my existing bill. I don't know how you do that exactly.
We looked, so Pareena's just highlighted the range that we're looking at. So the minimum range that we look at in this model is 0 to 1,000.
Yeah, and there are a lot, like I said, right above that, and they can look at that. That range right above that will be kicked in if a block tier, an increasing block tier is implemented, will be kicked into that second tier. So that's an opportunity for those users to conserve water and, get kicked into that. first
Save
tier.
money.
And save money, yeah.
And your average four-person household using about 3,000 gallons of water.
That's what I was sort of getting.
Yeah, I figured.
Because I don't have a feeling for it.
Tony Pascal, are there any farms that would be classified as high-end users?
No, I believe all of our farms have their own irrigation systems.
Okay.
Wells.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
No one wants to put treated water on their tomatoes, so.
I think we did have a list of the high users.
Yeah. And they're mostly, yeah. The Rivermead, unsurprisingly, a lot of folks drawing water there. New Hampshire, while Barron's second largest user, also a lot of water goes into their process. Nanac Community Hospital, unsurprisingly, a lot of folks washing hands there. Pheasantwood Nursing Home and McDowell Colony.
And what about the car wash? Sorry.
They don't rank in the top 5. So.
Really?
They recycle.
Yeah.
They recycle their water.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
On the sewer end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I have another question though. I had been told that if you live in an area where water is provided by the town, that you can't drill a shallow well just to feed your lawn. Is that true, or can you do that?
You can do that.
You can, yeah, I was
You
gonna say,
can.
you can have an
Yeah.
irrigation well.
Okay, that's where I was going.
Yeah. There is a cost to it, obviously, but yeah.
Yes, of course.
And we also have irrigation meters as well that would separate water from wastewater, which help a lot of folks that want to do watering like that.
Uh-oh.
If everyone else is going to offer a couple of comments. I'm Seth McLean, I work for the Public Works Department. Work closely with Nate, team on this and managing the department. I'm just going to mention this because I don't see anyone from the Conservation Commission here, but this tiered model system is something that's been discussed in Peterborough since I got here. No one's here to advocate for that, but I want you, the board, to know that that's not something the town staff kind of plucked out of nowhere or consulted with this firm to suggest here. This is something that members of your community have been interested in exploring for a long time. ended up becoming an emphasis point. I also want to give a thank you to Tony and David, who did a lot of work last year helping us, Nate and myself and the utilities team, start to probably a 50,000-foot view of what our infrastructure is looking like in terms of our potential capital outlay over the next several decades. And it's a scary number, and it's not a number I'm really actually very comfortable throwing out here right now, but it should be kept in mind. Tens of millions of dollars. I mean, falling in line with where our nation is. Our utility system is not much different than what you see from infrastructure report cards around the nation. We're in a similar situation. You see the main break notices that we send out. Our pipes are not in great shape. A lot of our infrastructure is getting older. Some of our pump stations are much older. And these things do need to get replaced. I'm not suggesting that I would advocate for one rate over the next, but I think I want to mention from a professional perspective, it's worth keeping in mind as we're looking at this. There will be ongoing capital needs. They do need to be funded through the enterprise fund or taking out bonds, which are not particularly, or loans to the SRF fund through DES, which aren't very popular things in this community at this point, given where our debt service is. So the rate is one way to help us to start to build up a capital reserve that will help deal with these things over the next couple decades. That's all.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up Conservation Commission. I liaison to them, and I know it's been a topic for many years.
I have a question on that point, Seth, because I've been looking at the model and, you know, in this right-hand box, there are different targets. I think it would be really helpful to know what we actually think we need. You know,
More than I think the rates could help, but
because,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you recall what, do I even, go ahead, David. Help me out here. I mean, let me preface that again with.
Present value, somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million over the next 20 to 30 years. And $20 million would only cover pipes, water and sewer pipes. Probably wouldn't cover if we need a new water tank or some large pieces in the sewer system. In addition, it's pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just judging by the cost of Pine Street, we have about 20 miles of piping in that in town that are similar in age and construction to what's on Pine Street. I think Pine Street's at least, what, $1.25 million now?
875, but nevertheless, when we get into that.
That's what it runs to, and those pipes are about 90 years old now, with an 80 to 120 year estimated life, according to the AWWA. So that's where we sit today.
Because I think one thing that we need, in my mind, to do is, to your point, Seth, we're probably not going to make it all up in this fund, but we should decide what, strategically, what is it that we think we're going to need, and then how much do we think is reasonable to build up using this fund, and then that'll at least lock that piece. So then we can play with the other moving parts, but I think we need to lock in what we think is a reasonable number of what we should try to get this fund to support both budgetarily and from a capital perspective.
So I think we're moving on to my part of the conversation.
Great point. Yeah.
So,
I would offer while she's getting set up, unlike a lot of grant funding at the federal level, there still exists, believe it or not, some funding and low interest loans that are still coming through on water related infrastructure projects. So I'm comfortable suggesting that into the future, I think the town would still be able to receive some support from NHDES, where a lot of the SRF funds come from, to help it, but you're still borrowing that money. So to your point, what is that target percentage you want to aim for that helps to offset and support that, which only makes you more competitive when grants become available too, because as a community then you're able to offer some kind of match. You're not just coming with a plan and saying, hey, we need $10 million. We have no money to put in. That's never popular in the grant world, but if you have something built up as a reserve, you've shown as a community that you're invested and you're interested in supporting it and that you're willing to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, thank you.
So what I'm proposing is that the select board consider adopting what is essentially going to be a two-stage process. That, and this is obviously very similar to what you just saw from Pareena. So we adopt a set of rates and a tier system that is going to meet our current budget first, that's our priority. That whatever scenario you decide to go with, that we just worry about our current budget right now and that we're meeting those for both water, which you see here, and sewer, which you see here. And then I'll go and we'll look at the rates and the different tier structures as well. But that way, we're actually meeting our needs as they are right now. Currently, with current rates, we're not meeting them. The next set of bills that sends out, if we don't make adjustments, are going to continue to eat into the fund balances of both water and sewer. Right now, they're still pretty healthy. We've got
2.3 million in one and 2.8 million in the other.
So we're doing pretty good. We've got a cushion there that we can work with that'll, if something does come up, and Nate and his guys need to make a substantial repair to another tank or pump station or what have you, we're going to be able to meet that need. But I will also give you some time to come back and consider how would you like to strategize meeting those future goals. And that's where we really get to dig into Dave and Tony's work, which we haven't really been able to do yet because we haven't had this in front of us, the tool that we really need to be able to make that make sense. What is this actually going to look like into the future? I'm going to slide my Excel spreadsheet over. I don't know if you've got a chance to look much into this sheet at all, but this is the budget, and you can see that it's projecting really far out. We're looking at 2038 here. So this gives us a lot to be able to look into the future. You can work in some debt scenarios into this, and all those end up getting reflected out over here, which is that top sheet that we're really probably going to be focusing most on once we get into all that. We can look at it as being debt. The interest rates on state revolving fund loans tend to be very low. So sometimes it makes more sense to borrow money when the interest rates are low than it does to necessarily dig into what you have in the fund balance. But it also gives us, a way to think about how do we just save money. We build a little bit extra rate cushion in so that we can save money into the future for projects that we know are coming up, which is, of course, the preferred method.
Yeah.
We do have some debt that we need to deal with. Coldstone Springs is just about turned on,
Comes due in October.
and the first bond payment is due in
Half a
October.
million dollars.
And that comes out of this?
That comes out of this, yeah.
Okay.
Is
So that
reflected
you are
in the
seeing
budget
that,
In the budget?
For 26, yeah.
yeah, in the 26 budget. So
Yeah.
let me just move this.
That's what it is.
And you can see that even right now, the rates that I'm proposing aren't going to meet the FY26 budget, but it provides a step up to the rates that we should be getting. I don't want to overload people all at once. I want to give people an opportunity to get adjusted to a new system. It's not going to, hopefully the board will adopt a tier-based system, which is going to lower the mandatory minimum bill and give them the opportunity to actually save some money.
I would like to point out one thing. Their model is a calendar year, so 2025 is actually FY26.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
So it does meet. This does meet our current budget, starting in FY25, or starting in calendar year 25.
Their 2025
Is our
FY26.
We're going to have to change that label.
I know.
Okay. So let's look into this a little bit closer. So here are those three systems, or these three possible tiers. We have our current single tier system. If we look to reduce the annual service charge by 55%, this, again, we're looking right now at the water side, which brings our minimum use cubic foot down to 300. That's a decrease of 450 cubic feet. then we need a rate of basically 10 cents per cubic foot to meet the requirements of the budget. So that's an increase, and actually, hold on a second, let me just show you what our current rates are, so you get a look at this
I
rate.
think it's 6.5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I got the wrong one. Yeah, it does that. Sorry, folks. So here's our current rate. So the water is 6.18 cents per cubic foot. Wastewater is 8.74 cents per cubic foot. The minimum bill for water on a quarterly basis is $46.41. The minimum bill on a quarterly basis for wastewater is $65.57.
And you would, sorry,
Yeah.
you would then change those numbers.
Yes. Once we have, exactly. So once we have something established that we can work with, and I'm just going to use the PDF, it's a little bit clearer, I think. Once we have something established, a system, a setting for where we have the minimum usage, a determination of how many tiers that the town wants to go with, then we can come back annually, every 2 years, every 6 months, whatever it is, whatever makes the most sense, and make adjustments to the rates as the board's deems appropriate.
Will it be explained that there's some part of that going into the enterprise fund, or will no part of it go into the enterprise?
Every penny of it goes into the enterprise funds. Yeah. That's how this works. It doesn't, none of it can be used for any other purpose.
So Nicole, just so I'm clear, with the rate we have today,
Yep.
are we off of, in terms of the run rate for this year? This year?
Yes. Yeah,
We
we're
are
drawing out both.
So we're drawing from our
Yeah.
fund,
Yes.
our reserve fund.
Yes, we're drawing down. We've been drawing down for a few years now.
How are we gonna roll this out?
I was thinking the same thing.
Press release, notices on bills.
Band-Aids.
Well, what I'm concerned with is when somebody gets their bill, is there enough information gonna be on there that
We're gonna,
basically?
you can't put a lot on the bill. You have
Yeah,
to refer people
right.
to the website,
Well,
and-
you can have
I mean,
the
I-
various charges and the cubic feet that they use at that level.
I have limited spacing for what I can do in that section on the bill, though. Back in the day, when we hadn't done rate increase and then we proposed doing one, we had sent out like a mailer that, hey, you haven't, and there's gonna be a rate increase coming, and I don't know if that's something that we think we need to do. But,
Our ultimate goal is to get people to start conserving water.
right.
And if they don't understand what tier they're in, essentially, this is your bill, well, how did I come across that? They're not gonna do a lot of research, they're gonna pay the bill. I'm hoping that there can be some mechanism in which, all right, you use this number of cubic feet of water, and this up to, and this is your charge, and then the second tier and the third tier.
we could very easily send out a mailer that just explains what the changes are.
But that doesn't give people the information they need, I don't think.
I was just gonna say, we may be able to pull that information, do a mail merge, but we'll need to think about how we do that first. I think it's a challenge to get that out of the system.
Well, and it should be approached that people have an opportunity
Yeah.
to save water, right?
We can
And-
reference what they paid the last quarter.
Last
I think.
quarter, yeah, that's what I was just thinking, as opposed to an
Volume?
average. just do
Cubic,
the last-
yeah.
cubic, yeah. Just do the previous quarter.
David?
Well, I'm just wondering, have we thought about, getting the newspaper to put something together, talking to them ahead of time, and
Yeah, I mean, we'll.
getting it in there, and
We'll
then the
do a
same,
write-up, do a
the
press
same thing can
release.
be put on the Facebook page.
Yep, all of that.
So get ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a state that has very deep concerns about water usage, and the bill is actually quite impressive. I mean, I appreciate there are limitations here, but it did do what you're saying, so. It provided very clear view of volume relative to thresholds, how you did last quarter, how you did this quarter, so you could really monitor your own performance.
Do you have copies of those bills that you could share?
And those systems are available, they just come at a cost.
Got it.
You know, I mean, that's,
Got it.
we can put any system in place if we, you know, we're wants to
Well,
pay
it'd be
for it.
interesting to find out what that cost would be, because I really do think the more information that we can present to someone
Exactly.
right there is going to be
Exactly.
much more valuable than, oh, well, go to this website and figure it out.
Right, well, I'm more concerned about the initial hump. I mean, if we hold off and wait for us to get a new software package, it's gonna provide all that information and then generate that
Well,
for them. We're
no,
pushing off the rate.
I realize that. I realize it's going to be somewhat evolutionary, but
Yeah.
I'd like to make that a goal
Mhm.
for this,
I agree. I think it can really
Yeah.
yield great
make
results.
people aware.
Yeah.
We'll research some options and see what those packages cost.
That'd be great.
Great. What next? Are we actually picking something tonight?
And that's up to you folks. If you want to pick something tonight, or if you want, you know, take some time, if you have questions about what you see here on the screen. Lily spent a lot of time working on these recommendations, so.
Yeah, I wanted to commend Lily for the work that she's put into these numbers.
Thank you.
Like you got nothing better to do.
I couldn't see last Thursday night, but.
Well, for the amount of time that I spent on these sheets, I mean, I can understand the flow.
Lily is so on top of her job. I've been holding my stipend checks for select board for the last 2 months, waiting for this one to come. I think it comes soon, right? The June one?
You
It's gonna wait.
will be paid tomorrow.
I was gonna wait and deposit all 3 tomorrow, and she came over to me, are you getting your checks? She knows that, and they're not, what is that, I don't even know what it is. It's like $140 per check, so.
I'm concerned about stale dated checks.
there's- And that's exactly why I helped them. Okay, so I just, yeah, thank you, Lily.
You're welcome.
So this is great. Do you want to just think about these, or?
I'm comfortable with 3-tier system.
I agree, yeah, I like that.
And these numbers seem to do the work, so.
Yeah.
At first I was toying with the idea of actually raising the minimum cubic feet to more of the average. So it was right around 500 for a dry year. Or no, dry year. I don't know.
But right now, there are a bunch of people out there that have thought I'm using 750 cubic feet per quarter, because they get that minimum. And I'd be curious to know how much we're actually using it, if it's actually that much, if it is a fun, we can work on. It's really number, but
Do you really want to,
You want it,
would you
we
like
have
it
it.
announced?
Is it on the
Would you like your actual usage to be announced?
Beth did some research.
excellent.
And?
So exactly what question are we asking?
How much does Tyler use every quarter?
Tyler's bill ranges from the minimum 111.98 to 150
The
currently.
cubic feet, how many
Cubic
cubic feet
feet?
is he using?
Oh, I want to say you were like right around the 600 or 700
Okay,
typically when you're in
So
that
just
minimum.
great.
And
But that's the
sometimes
other
you
thing
go
about a more,
over to 1,000, but.
something that has like a graph on it, so you can
Yes.
watch what you're doing. Like we do with the
Yes.
electric bill too. It comes in with it last year. Why did we have so much electric last year? Why is it so low this year? So-
Yes, and what's really interesting too is if you see really big anomalies, then you can start doing detective work. Sometimes it's like leaking pipes or leaking
Yeah,
toilets,
toilets,
or these things can create havoc. But you're not always triggered to look if you don't see what's actually going on.
I think one of the things we're going to find, actually, and it just occurred to me, is that the billing software or the invoicing software that we're using right now is the same that we use for our tax bills. So we might be looking at having to split and carry two systems to be able to do what you're thinking of doing. I'm not sure we'll be able to do the same, have.
Do you think your system can, Beth couldn't
I
hear the
didn't
question.
hear you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So can you do the analysis on the bills in terms of
I don't know.
previous quarter usage, current billing usage?
I'll have to reach out to the software provider because we're very limited with our print to mail forms, how much space we have. There's also the issue if people don't pay their bill, we need a place on spot in order to be able to say you used to have a previous balance. So that when you have a big blank space, if somebody has previous balances, that kind of gets eaten up. So I don't know that we have a lot of room to do an analysis on every bill of what your previous usage is to.
But it's also possible that we don't have to use this easy fold sealing type of billing for this process. We could use a whole sheet of paper that gets tri-folded and stuck into an actual envelope. It would be more laborious to get the bill out, but we might not have to change the actual system because you won't get historical data in a new system because historical data is in the old system.
Right.
So it's not going to help you for several years if you switch systems, but maybe it's just a matter of what type of bill we create. Is it a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper as opposed to just that small section that then gets folded and gummed? Possibly.
We'll look into it.
We'll look into it,
all
yeah.
the options in our
Right.
existing system and see what we can do. And,
Yeah.
if that doesn't meet what you're looking for, then we can start shopping around for other systems.
Is there a way to keep the current billing as it is, but then have the information, have the link to the information that's on the website for people to look at?
Oh, on their
usage?
individual bills?
So it's not in the bill, it's not in
That's
paper?
The historical data is
It's
there
already there.
on our EB2Gov information. Their bill and their usage?
Because there was, supposedly you can figure out how many people might live in a household based on their usage, so that's kind of protected information, so it's not supposed to be out there. If it is, we're in trouble.
Because you can look at anybody's bill. You can search
Yeah.
by address, by name.
And you
You're
can pay other
not, you're
people's
not
bills
restricted
too,
to just
if you
looking at your bill. What?
want. You can pay other people's bills too.
You certainly can.
You can, have fun, Tyler.
But it is protected, correct?
Yeah, but I need
That's
to
why
go
it's
and
not-
double
that's
check, but
important.
it's
That's
not
why it's
supposed to
not
be out
necessarily
there.
available,
Yeah, that's important.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Where does
Just
the
for-
cost of this program, this software, where is it put into our budget?
It's-
Water
What
and
is it
sewer
called?
utility billing.
Yeah,
So the purchase of this software is in our current budget? or-
it is. It's already,
In the water,
Yeah.
sewer, utility budgets.
It's
The
in-
enterprise budgets, not the general fund.
Okay, but it's in there?
Yep, we have a
already. I mean,
utility section of the water department
Okay.
and of the sewer department.
What is that cost?
Currently, we're paying about
No, I'm sorry, for the purchase of the software, how do we do it?
Oh,
we
Lease
don't
it or-
hundreds
yeah,
of thousands of
yeah, they're
dollars.
very expensive packages.
This particular, what we're talking about
What we're
right now?
talking about right now, to do like what they have in California, these packages are hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're very expensive. But they do provide you a lot of capability.
Sorry.
Are you talking about
I'm
this
talking about this,
analysis?
yes, this
No, not,
analysis.
oh, not the
That's what I'm
analysis.
talking about, yes.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking
Dude,
about the
both-
billing.
It's a good
I thought you were
question.
talking about a new database
No,
out.
no,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no.
That's
She's
fine,
talking
that's
about,
fine, I
I was
did want
talking
to know
about
that
this.
too.
You're talking about this?
Yes, I am, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. How much is this?
I don't,
$35,000?
yeah, remember exactly what the contract was. I'm sorry. I'm looking at you guys. Seth probably has.
That's the
85,000?
I don't recall off the top of my head, this was going on a year and a half ago.
55.
on doing the work.
It was 55,000.
55?
Yeah.
We started a year and a half ago.
I was gonna
It's been
say,
a long time,
it
sorry.
was over
It's-
2 years. We've been working on this for a long time, so.
Right, I don't work in that part of the budget, but I was
Yeah.
just curious as to, it's in the budget somewhere.
Yes, it's in both sides under services. If you look at the services
Okay.
line, it'll
All
be, it's mixed into whatever other services we have in those given years.
Okay.
Someone want to make a motion?
Is that your motion?
Is it,
I propose, I make a motion that we
No.
adopt the alternative 2 3-tier system with the current values as shown on the screen.
So with the goal of meeting the current budget for
Exactly.
FY 25-26.
Yeah.
Okay.
I second.
No, that's just.
It's just water. You're talking just water?
We're just
Water
talking
and sewer? We're just water.
Well, we're talking, well, I've seen the numbers for sewer, and it works to
Yeah, it's the same.
pretty much the same, the rates are different.
Is the vote for the 3-tier?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Motion seconded, all those in favor? Aye. Yeah, thanks for all that work, and I just want to reiterate also that we have a couple volunteers that put a ton of time into working on this too. So as usual, we get a lot from our citizens. So thank you. And thanks, Pareena and Mike. That was
Yeah.
great work, great presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, next we have next up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. We're going to vote to encumber some funds.
We're going to vote to encumber some funds. I can get down to that. So first things first, we have the road paving sidewalk replacement work already contracted. So it tells me that they are out. Nate says that they're working on Water Street as we spoke. It's done.
Looks great.
Done this morning. Outstanding.
A lot of people smiling driving down that road.
So
It's unlikely that we'll actually not expend these funds by the end of the fiscal year because the work will be completed by the end of the week, but administratively, sometimes invoicing, contract disputes, whatever else could happen, so it's still helpful to take the vote tonight, but I expect that we'll actually have paid these bills. The paving, 173,648, the sidewalk budget, I think we need a little more time, that one really needs to be encumbered.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve these encumbrances.
you want to do all of them at once?
Sure.
We'll also do police department.
Okay, right.
Where we're carrying over the upgrade to the database system.
Yeah.
So it just unfortunately got delayed. So you can do a sweeping motion to encumber the funds as presented.
So let it be swept.
I'll second.
Any questions? No? All those in favor?
Great.
Aye.
All right,
All right, great.
moving on. Next, we have vote to approve revolving fund budgets for FY '26. So all of these were heard at the public hearing that was held back in March with the general fund budget and all the other budgets that we budgeted at that point. They then moved, all those other budgets moved to town meeting and were voted on, leaving these two budgets, which are revolving fund, and so they are, essentially, they require just a selectmen's vote, not a vote of town meeting to adopt. So we're looking to adopt the recreation and the PEG station budgets as was presented in the budget
And
process.
the revolving is increased, it is
I'm
not
sorry,
the
and the
budget.
revolving is increased. I'm sorry, I keep wanting to skip over that for whatever reason. The recreation revolving fund increased, reflective of the CDFA grant project. So that increase to the budget that was presented back in March. Excuse me. I have it literally, oh, right there, $113,000 above and beyond what was presented.
And this is for
And
the
this
match.
is, and this is for
This is
match.
match,
Yeah. And that can come out of the, the cash balance in the revolving fund.
I move that we approve this encumbrance, or this,
Approve the revolving fund budgets with
Yes.
the amendment.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that. Or do we have any discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay. Pass those. And then we'll get to the overspends. The recreation revolving fund is overspent. The selectmen's approved budget for FY '25. Lily laid out all of those in her memo. The total vote to overspend will be $172,727. Much of that is offset by grant funds, fundraising by locals and who wanted to see the skate park improvements and so forth.
Right.
How much money came in for the skate park?
About 47,000, or 45,000, sorry, it's 45,000.
And where is that money coming from?
That-
The difference
So right now,
coming out of the revolving fund?
right now, the
Cash
difference
balance,
is coming out of the revolving fund, unless additional fundraising is successful.
44,800 shows here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like about 45,000.
And my understanding is that the remainder, the difference between what we have and what it will cost, will also be funded by private donors.
That is correct. So there's still a remaining balance. They wish to do a phase 2 build out. We won't consider a phase 2 until phase 1's been completely funded.
I move to approve the overspend of $172,727 for the recreation revolving fund.
Yeah, I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Last thing, this did not make it into the agenda packet, but was sent to you by Lily. So this is a vote to request an expenditure from the trust funds. Chief Bernard's requesting to use up to $46,000 from the Police Department Fleet Management Capital Reserve Fund to purchase a replacement cruiser.
Is
The
this
cruiser,
EV?
no. This is
This is
another one. So this is another gasoline engine cruiser, or one of our regular replacements. The cruiser is actually sitting in a lot. If we are able to send them a check, they will say, basically, stick Peterborough onto the side of that cruiser, and then as it's time to send it off for the equipment installation, they'll go directly there, and we'll hopefully get it back end of summer, beginning of fall sometime. So this is a good opportunity for us to jump onto.
But this payment is for the car only, not
This
for...
car only, outfitting of the cruiser will come out of the general fund in the police department's budget.
Outfitting costs about $23,000.
Yes.
And that's in the budget.
Yeah.
How old's the vehicle it's replacing? How many miles? Everybody know?
Usually it's about 200,000 miles
More or
that
less.
chief puts on.
And then the engine hours are just through the roof. So they're running these right to the bone. We usually sell them, we've opened the bids before, we usually sell them for between $3,000 and $5,000.
Parts.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, I would make a motion to expend, for that expenditure, up to $46,000.
Okay.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
You seem to be spending a lot of money on this time.
Today? That's all.
It's all of its ours.
Talked about it.
And we'll keep the request.
Last meeting of the year, none of it is tax funds. So that's, really important thing to keep in mind is
Yeah, this
almost
is
everything
different.
we're discussing tonight is not supported by taxes.
They're not approved by.
And then we had one, another item to add.
Yes.
The Miller State Park Patrol
Yep.
request for FY 25-26.
So we're required to enter into a contract with the state of New Hampshire to be able to patrol Miller State Park. In exchange, they pay us. I think they're paying us about $9,000. I'm sorry, $7,000, yeah. About $7,000. I know. Yeah, it's great, isn't that? $6,900.
840, 6,840.
Now, was there an increase over last year?
Yes, it's based on what the chief sends to them as far as the cost.
Okay, so it's a net zero
Yeah.
impact in dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're required to work with us because we're the policing authority for the community, so
First state park in New Hampshire, correct?
that's correct.
I make a motion to authorize Chief Scott Gennard to enter into contracts or agreements on behalf of the town of Peterborough with the state of New Hampshire, acting by and through the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and is further also authorized to execute any documents on behalf of this municipality which may be in his judgment desirable or necessary to effect the purpose of this resolution.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Great.
Perfect.
Watch what you're doing up there. The cops are watching. Okay, and then we have minutes from May 20th to approve.
I had one comment.
Right.
In the section where we were talking about the EV charging stations down in the Riverwalk parking lot, Al Lenos inquired about upgrading the charging stations to high-speed charger. I want to reiterate that it was never our intention to have high-speed chargers in that space because we want people to linger in town, not just use it as a pass-through. But beyond that, Mr. Kennedy stated that we can go to level 2 but not level 3. Well, we're already at level 2. So the chargers are level 2. We can increase maybe the current that we deliver at that level to increase the mileage that we can get out of the hours charging. But that's our next step. So if you want to reword that, clarify it, that would be great.
For sure.
But she has signed copies. Motion to approve.
That's it. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Is that it?
Unless you'd like to talk about something else.
Can we stop that speeding on Granite Street? I actually was on Granite Street this afternoon, and I pulled around behind a bunch of cars coming around that light. They were all gone. I was doing the speed limit, they're all gone, it's crazy.
Can we increase the patrolling on that street?
We patrol that a lot. They're going through there all the time. The real challenge is that when the road was reconstructed, it was straightened out a little bit, it was leveled a little bit, and now traffic feels very comfortable going much faster through there. So that is unfortunately the downside for doing road work. You make it real nice and everyone wants to go a bit faster.
Yeah. I just wonder, I appreciated your response to the concern in terms of the sign,
Yep.
which I think is really going to be helpful, but I also wonder if you could say, I don't know this, if you could say something about how we're patrolling it.
Yeah.
I think that would also be helpful.
I didn't have a chance to talk to Chief Bernard before I sent that email, because I wanted to make sure it got out,
Yeah.
fairly quickly, but, we can certainly talk about that. We have an opportunity, hopefully, after we've collected some data, to request that the State and Southwest Region Planning Commission maybe do a traffic study of that stretch of road. They've just spent an awful lot of money down there, so I'm not sure they're going to be in a rush to do any, spend any more for traffic calming measures, but it is possible. We at least get in the queue.
Well, it's a common complaint around town
Sure.
about speeding.
Certainly.
It is.
And as soon as they improved Pine Street, I was recommended that we would dig some more holes.
Careful what you wish for situation.
Natural traffic calming.
Speaking of crosswalks, are there some still to be painted, Seth?
Yes, there are.
Oh,
Chairboard.
just checking.
Crew's been out every
I know
day.
it's been raining, I know, and I've seen that, sure. Excellent, anything else? No, great. Thanks, everyone.
Motion to approve, motion to adjourn. All right. Thank you, everybody, you all look glazed.